Welcome. It's really good to have you. We'll just give people another minute or so. And as we wait, if you want to grab a journal or anything to take notes, we'll be doing 30 minutes of just presenting on the topic. And then for those of you that want to stay on, we're going to do some community discussion and breakout rooms on the topic. So that's how this will work. This session is being recorded so that we can share it out with the community. Um, and so I'm going to minimize the window with everyone's faces just so that it doesn't take up so much room there. Okay, so great. Welcome. Um, so we'll just start with a little introduction. I'll actually have you start with your introduction, Eileen, and then I'll go from there.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon and good morning. I am calling in from Southern California, so it's morning here. I have a little bit of a cold, so I apologize if my voice cracks or anything. My name is Dr. Eileen. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. My doctorate is in clinical psychology, and I've been working with humhum. I don't even know, maybe well over a year at this point. And I am helping with the mental health component of dating and relationships. Today, we're talking about new relationship energy. And we're really excited about this series. We're really excited about exploring all the ways we can identify it and work with this energy. So, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Are we going to actually go through everyone, Alexandra?
Um, not yet because we are gonna just go into the presentation, but I'll just do a brief intro about Hum Hum for those of you that are new to the community and maybe yeah. So I'm Alexandra. I'm the founder of Hum Hum. I started this community about 3 years ago as a way to create more nourishment in the dating process because it's something that many of us will be in for really long periods of our life and dating as in entering in relationships in various forms. And so Eileen and I we've been collaborating on doing series around transitions in relationships, everything from starting a new relationship to deepening in connection to releasing relationship to questioning and all of these different transition points. And so many of us may go in and out of this for decades. We want to really create a community and a space where you feel supported and nourished and connected as you're in all phases of relationship. Um, and so what we're going to start with is if you could just pop into the chat, what is it that comes to mind when you hear the word new relationship energy? Like, what are feelings that you associate with this topic? So if you can just pop those in the chat, then we can get a sense of how everyone's seeing this energy. Butterflies. Yeah, full of potential, hopeful, beautiful, light, excitement with some anxiety, big smile, exciting, trepidation, amazing. Great, hopeful. Awesome. So I'm going to pass it over to Eileen to talk a little bit about, yeah, how to recognize this energy and other things we associate with it.
Yes. So, we all have our own personalities, right? We have our own ways of moving through the world, our own experience, our routines. And it's interesting when we meet someone, especially if we are attracted to that person and we sense some sort of romantic potential, an energy begins to emerge that may be very different from the way you move through the world by yourself. So the parties involved cultivate and create this their own force, and we're calling it new relationship energy. And yes, it often does feel like butterflies, as someone said, butterflies in the stomach. It can be a nervousness. Sometimes you can feel sick to your stomach even though you're enjoying this new sensation. it's really interesting what our nervous system does when we meet someone. It can be frenetic energy, maybe scattered thoughts. I'm wondering if any of you have ever, experienced this. You meet someone and you're just sort of dumbfounded. Maybe your mind goes blank. Perhaps you get distracted. And sometimes perhaps you're in a really anchored or grounded place in your life when you meet this other person. So it's smooth and it's easy. And even though you really like them, you notice you're keeping it together. You're not wigging out, it's free flowing. So there's all these different sensations that we feel: mind, body, spirit, energy. Does it feel generous? Does it feel like you're curious? Do you notice this is actual physical attraction, or is it psychological? Am I intellectually attracted to them? What is it? Do I feel passion? Now, that's always interesting, right? When we first meet someone and there's this desire, this animalistic, it comes out of nowhere. You weren't expecting this, doesn't even necessarily feel like you, and yet you're extremely passionately drawn to this individual. There can also be what we call a spiritual experience. It can feel expansive and inspiring and activating and energizing, right? So the question is, how is this energy affecting you? When you meet this individual and you're feeling this something, this tingling, you're noticing that something is happening to you. Maybe you're hoping it's also happening to them. How is that energy actually affecting you? So one of the things we want to do is really stay present and give ourselves permission to look into ourselves and ask, what's happening to me? So check in first, check in with yourself, despite what you're feeling physiologically, emotionally, whatever's happening to you. Check in with yourself and always ask, how is this affecting me? Do I like it? Does this sensation feel good? Another thing to ask yourself is, what is the capacity that you have for a relationship right now? Because sometimes we meet people and we're really intrigued and very interested, but it's not necessarily the right timing. Perhaps you're working on a project at work, or you've got a family situation going on. You may not have the capacity. We've all heard that saying, right person, wrong time, right? Sometimes things don't even get off the ground because we're so busy. So, first of all, you want to know, how is the energy affecting you? And secondly, do you even have the capacity to hold it, to entertain it, to explore it without judgment? How are you handling this new experience? Another question: are you staying in the present moment? Are you staying with what's happening right now? So I feel the butterflies. I feel so excited. Oh my goodness, I like this person. They're just, oh my gosh, they're so hot, right? Whatever's going on. But am I staying in the present moment? And where am I feeling this in my body? Is it in my stomach, or am I getting a headache? Is it making me sick because I like them so much? And what if they don't like me? What's happening? Do you feel tension in your shoulders or in your back or in your spine? To notice these things without judgment, it's called attentional focus, to just pay attention. Believe it or not, that can be so self-regulating, just attending to. It's not about solving the problem. It's attending to the sensation that you're feeling in your body. And it's also attending to any thoughts that are coming up, any feelings. Okay. So are you allowing yourself to enjoy this right now without expectations, without any pressure about what's happening now or in the future? Can you stay in this moment? While at the same time, notice if, let's say that you do, exchange numbers with this person and you do start going out with this person, but it's still at the very beginning stages, noticing the momentum that begins to build. Do you find yourself wanting to stay in that good feeling, being agreement oriented, avoiding rocking the boat, avoiding asking any questions that might create challenging conversations? Are you able to tolerate the positive sensation while also noticing any other energy that's beginning to surface in this new relationship? Some of it may be a mixed bag. It might feel great. It might feel uncomfortable. It might be an ebb and flow. It might be all of the above. Are you able to stay in the experience? With each experience, we are entraining our brains and our nervous system how to respond for us in the future. So, if we can give ourselves permission to slow it down, take your time, and enjoy every detail, enjoy every moment, allow it to linger, stay in the present, notice how it's affecting you, and be attentive to that without judgment. That's one of the ways that we can notice how it's affecting us. Now, I'm going to pass it to you, Alexandra, so you can kind of discuss how to work with it once we realize that this new relationship energy is here.
Thanks so much, Eileen. Yeah, and so just building off of what you were saying, this rooting in present time is one of the most skillful ways to really work with this energy because that's where all of your information is, what your needs are, how to pace, because it's really easy to get caught up in that kind of exuberant experience and the momentum because it feels so good, but it actually could fry us out a little bit. And so, in order to really know how to maneuver and move forward, keeping centered in present time will keep us in integrity because you'll know what is my truth in this given moment. And instead of, flowing into someone else's pace or needs or desires and kind of losing ourselves, it's like, hold on, let me pause, let me breathe. What am I feeling? What am I feeling in the body? What am I noticing in the mind? And that's where this kind of mindfulness really comes in because the kind of near enemy of NRE or new relationship energy is this thing called limerence, which has a little bit more of a future leaning, kind of addictive, attached, and slightly diluted quality to it, which I use the word diluted as in not seeing clearly, not aligned in right view, where there is projection into a fantasy rather than what's happening real time. Am I in relation with this other person? Am I in relation with myself? Do I know what's happening for me? And so, really allowing this kind of exciting phase of a new connection to be a process, there's a very subtle joy that comes from just simply being present to that unfolding that is actually almost just it's not attached to the person, it's not attached to the experience that you're having with the person, it's yours. And so there's something that's a bit smoother to that kind of joy and excitement is where you are really in integrity, you're watching your experience, you're able to relate to it from this place of not judging, and that also gives you more capacity to know how to maneuver with it so it doesn't take you over. And also, you can harness it to use that kind of nourishing quality in the rest of your world. You can bring that excitement into your work, you can bring it into all of your relationships. And so, Eileen is going to talk more specifically about how we can actually harness this beautiful energy to fuel the rest of our lives.
Yeah. So there are creative ways to use this new relationship energy and really hone it into a skill set, believe it or not. And if we can skillfully harness the relationship energy at the new stage, it's amazing. It brings clarity. It helps us to tap into the inner wisdom that's already, in us. But there's also this twofold experience. You've got this new relationship dynamic that you're able to enjoy, but you're also able to use the energy of the new relationship and then apply it to all the other areas of your life. So this is powerful. And whether the relationship takes off and you go to the next level or not, if you use the momentum of new relationship energy, you can apply it to work, you can apply it to other relationships, you can apply it to your physical fitness goals, your travel goals, your dreams. When you're dream building, brainstorming, you can use that energy, you can harness it, sort of like if you go to the gym, if you work out or whatever it is you might do, hike, if you've ever gone on a really great hike and you get to the top of the mountain and you feel so good, even though you're exhausted, it feels so rewarding. And you can take that energy and you can ride that wave for weeks at a time because you climbed the mountain. You did that hard thing. What's the same with relationships? Whether the relationship goes to the next level or not, meeting someone else, entangling with their energy, being curious about who they are, and allowing yourself to be known, allowing yourself to be seen, being vulnerable within the limits of what's comfortable for you, and allowing yourself to be explored, allowing another to be curious about you and to ask questions about you, and then for you to dance that dance with them. That creates a beautiful, beautiful momentum. And in that, there's a skill set. So if we can harness all of that energy, that new relationship energy and just stay in the moment and enjoy it, feeling and noticing, we can allow ourselves to benefit from the fuel of that connection. So we can use the energy as fuel and apply it to so many different areas of our life. The self-care practices that you already have, you can hone them and make them better by applying this energy. So really, new relationship energy is a beautiful gift that we are exploring and experiencing with the other. But I love what you said, Alexandra, about it being separate from them, because to some degree, we are creating it ourselves and having our own individual experience. And so this is really good news, because whether the relationship takes off or not, we can apply all that we're experiencing and learning in that relationship to ourselves and feel on top of the world and feel very, very excited about who we are. And as we've said many times in Hum Hum, to some degree, we're dating ourselves first, right? We're dating ourselves first. We're learning to love ourselves. We're learning to like ourselves. We're learning to be in our own energy and to enjoy all that we are and to cultivate our own magic. And, I know this may sound out there, but we're learning to make love to ourselves, right? That's what this is all about. And this, to some degree, makes it easier and more comfortable and more fun to actually engage with others. So there's a few pitfalls that we want to avoid when we are working with this energy. We want to fill our lives with all the things that we already love, and we want to maintain a state of inquisitiveness and curiousness and optimism, but we want to stay grounded. Some of the pitfalls that can show up in this new relationship energy are confusion or feeling not like yourself. Alexandra alluded to it. There's emotional dysregulation. And emotional dysregulation is when we feel it's worry, it's maybe depression, it could be anxiety, it could be future casting and feeling like, oh no, they're not going to like me, or wait till they find out about this flaw that I have, or I always ruin relationships. I can only get so far. And then, already thinking about the worst. Okay. We want to be very careful with that. We have a right brain and we have a left brain. Our right brain is more emotional, intuitive, and creative. The left brain is pragmatic and strategic and analytical. We need both. And we're a combination of both. Some of us tend to lean more towards the other sometimes. But that left brain, as much as we need it for business and strategy and planning, if we're not careful, it can spiral us down and cause us we can overthink. And in overthinking, we can also create scattered thoughts. And when we have those scattered thoughts and we're overthinking, we actually can become dysregulated. It's really interesting. Something will happen where at a subconscious level, the amygdala senses danger because we're overthinking. And if the amygdala senses danger, it's happening at the subconscious level, we go into fight or flight. So now all of a sudden, this beautiful relationship energy where I was feeling the butterflies and I was feeling so great, now I feel afraid and scared and very, very nervous and very, very guarded. And now I'm acting weird. And they're responding to my weird, and they're being weird, and they're being cold, and now we're ghosting, and oh my goodness, it can go left, wrong very quickly. So we want to make sure that we are monitoring ourselves, enjoying the relationship energy, staying present, but notice if there's any if you're not feeling yourself, notice if there's any tension in the physical body. If you're noticing your tone of voice is getting rigid and you're getting stern, and well, where's this going? Because I'm not here. I'm not here to waste time. I don't want to, just be sitting here, dating somebody who's not interested in getting married, because I did. So if we're like already there and you just met him yesterday, okay, see what I mean? So let's check ourselves. Let's calm our nervous system. Let's breathe. Let's notice if we're off to the races, trying to already decide where we're going to be 10 years from now and where we're going to celebrate our anniversary, but we just met him 5 minutes ago. So let's just breathe and bask in the wonder. We can avoid the pitfalls by breathing, staying present, giving ourselves permission to remain in the present moment, enjoying the newness of the moment, harnessing that energy, and noticing if we're finding ourselves straying away from anything that we would consider grounded or authentic. If you find yourself not being authentic, okay, in any way, if you find yourself not being grounded, if you find yourself saying things or doing things that are uncharacteristic of you, then that's a really, it's important for us to just, without judgment, breathe and recenter. Come back to the middle and give yourself permission to be where you are. Now, control is not necessarily a bad thing. We don't want to control others. We want to control our own dynamic. Okay. So sometimes when the amygdala fires off and you're going into fight or flight, it's because there's parts of you that feel out of control. And when this happens, the nervous system will react. So pay attention if you're feeling sweaty palms, stomach ache, headaches, muscle tension. If you're noticing problematic communication, you're angry, or there's agitation, or you're rigid in the way that you're reacting. If there's aloofness or avoidance, if you're finding yourself being cynical as a defense mechanism or argumentative, if you're emotionally volatile or uncharacteristically silent, just notice, breathe, come back to the moment, come back to the present. Ask yourself, who am I? Who am I really? Am I being my real self? Am I being my true self? Am I being my authentic self? Are there things that I need to work on and that I need to address? So when we notice this need to control or we're becoming dysregulated, it's an opportunity for us to set boundaries within ourselves, get clear and remember who we are. We can also make requests if it's appropriate of the other person and give ourselves permission to hear their honest answers without judging them and, creating character assassination or saying, well, this will never work. Just be present, ask your questions, be open, and just notice, where are you? Who are you? Does their dynamic fit with you? And even if it doesn't, even if it's not going to go to the next level, what a beautiful opportunity to engage with another person, to meet another person, to practice dating or new relationship energy, to recognize where you are, to locate where you are, to be in your own energy and to harness it even more, to be in your own magic and to apply that to all areas of your life. All right, Alexandra, I'm going to pass it back to you.
Thank you. Also, one thing I wanted to note on the shiny side of new relationship energy, just another gift in it is the ability to witness the natural capacity of your own heart and those incredible benevolent qualities that get stimulated when we are feeling connected to our heart. So things like compassion or reciprocal joy or generosity, these are just natural qualities that we all have in us. And to watch them get stoked organically in a dynamic is actually really nourishing for us to witness that goodness and those qualities. But now I'm going to talk about more pitfalls. So once you've been riding the high of that, one thing to pay attention to is if you're feeding momentum in a way that brings you off center. So sometimes in the beginning of a connection, there's a lot of synergy. There's a lot of agreeing and liking and momentum of, yes, we're both doing this and reciprocity. And so sometimes because that feels so good, we can get addicted to it. And then you can start to pay attention to those very subtle moments where manipulation happens, where you might notice yourself slightly withhold something where it's like, oh, I don't want to share that yet because it might impact the feel good. And so if you start to notice yourself withholding, you start to have experiences of shame arise. These are things that are like changing that flow of experience and of energy. And so we might want to push them away. And so instead of doing that, it's a really good opportunity to be available to that. What's coming up in me? What am I noticing? What am I afraid of? And if we have any kind of internal dissonant interactions or experiences, it's so critical to know, oh, there's a part of me that's not fully aligned here. Like there's a part of me that feels some tension. I'm afraid of this conflict if I present this part of myself. So instead of shying away from those, seeing if you can soften into those and be with those and courageously bring those into the dynamic to see if the dynamic can actually hold that with you. And if the person that you're in this relay with has the capacity to meet you in those less shiny places and those places that are scarier for you to talk about, that feel more vulnerable, that might disrupt the flow of feel good, that's actually the real gateway to true intimacy and true connection, is when we're able to bring our full self to the table and feel met in that. Another thing to just pay attention to is exactly, you don't want to stop the high, and it can become really addictive, and that's the thing. And it's like, but there's actually another high, like when you present your truth and when you're showing up vulnerable and you can do the scary thing and that's met, that's like a whole different level of high. It's like, wow. It's like relief and connection in a more like full way, and because it's grounded in your truth. And so disempowerment, this is another thing to pay attention to. Like, are there points where you feel slightly out of integrity? Like, are you overextending, overdoing, seeing yourself kind of swept up in the momentum? And just paying attention to any kind of little indicators of some codependence where, you're somehow harming yourself by overextending. Um, One other thing is just paying attention to when you notice attachment form. And I don't mean forming an attachment bond, those are healthy and important, and we need to do that as humans. I'm talking about attaching to a projection that you have about the future and about an idea that you have about where it's going to go. And you make this person the be all end all, or the thing that is going to satisfy all these other things. And so just noticing any little slivers of that. um, and then the last thing I'll say before we move into our discussion groups, and I'll talk about that in a minute, is just sometimes when we are riding that high and have this continuous flow of positive energy, the shifts in that experience are can feel really confusing. And if we can remember not to see those as bad or problematic, but just different, it can help us to integrate the shift. And so, for example, if there's like a crash in momentum, or that can evoke a sense of disappointment, which maybe that crash is due to a lot of different things. One, it's just unsustainable to remain in that space for so long. And so not to project ideas onto what this shift of energy is, but to kind of just stay with it and talk about how you're feeling in it. And then noticing if there are imbalances in desire or willingness or attention or presence or generosity. These are all avenues to check in with ourselves and also bring that into the connection and have discussions about if we start to feel like, oh, I feel like something's out of balance here. How can I resource myself so that I'm in integrity and I'm not comparing how I'm showing up to how they're showing up? Am I showing up in a way that feels good for me, regardless of how they're showing up? And if that's off, that's usually when we start to feel like not good. Like, okay, something's not quite right here. I'm feeling like I'm overextending. And then we start to want to control the other person when, to build on what Eileen was saying, but in fact, that's where we can shift our own, how we're showing up. Um, and so I just want to pause and see, Eileen, if you wanted to add anything to that before we start to move into our discussion.
Well, I know some of you maybe asked a couple of questions, and if we, when we go into the discussion, if you choose to stay, please ask those questions there, and we can definitely address them. I just want to just remind everyone that we can get a grip on our brains. You know, we are in training our brains how to deal with situations. So just remember to breathe, and we can give ourselves permission to activate whatever we need. So if we need to activate calm and peace and grounded perspective in the moment, to come back to center, to use that, to harness that energy in the best ways possible, go ahead and exercise the courage. You can activate anything you want. You can activate any brain protocol that you need in any given moment to self regulate, to remain calm, to use this energy to your highest good. So I just want to, and I know it's a lot. We're cramming a lot in a short amount of time. And of course, it takes a lot of practice, but stay the course. We all can do this.
Awesome. Thank you. So for those of you, can I just get a show of hands who is planning to stay for the discussion group?